Welcome to the Senior Compass Show, and it's so exciting to have a couple of very special guests here with me today. But before we start chattering with the two guests, I'll give you a little bit of a background. We have this group in town called the One Voice for Seniors, and we're a group of professionals in the Marshall community that provide services to seniors, mostly in Marshall, but then also some of us have jobs that reach out to a multitude of counties. But we all serve the aging population. I would say the senior citizens. Some don't like that title, but my other title for it is those 55 and best. And a couple months ago, we were meeting like we do on a monthly basis, and it came to our attention as we were looking around the table, we said, gosh, there's a lot of us who are serving seniors right here in Marshall. And then we began going around and going, wow, there's quite a variety of jobs. I mean, jobs that, hey, wait, I wonder if there's any juniors or seniors at the high school thinking about these jobs. Because we had the conversation that we so often think that if you're going to go and work with those that are 55 and best, it has to be in the medical field. And we had that revelation that day that no, that is not really the truth. And right here in Marshall, there's a multitude of jobs that can serve those who are 55 and best. So with that, I'd like to welcome Jamie Enger-Lanners with MNRAAA, which is the Minnesota River Area Agency on Aging, and Sara Dolan, who is with Heritage Pointe. But we're going to start off with, Jamie, let's start with you. Okay. So when you were a junior and senior in high school, what were you thinking of doing after high school?
Well, actually, I was thinking of going into the aging field because I had a job at in dietary at the nursing home in Granite Falls.
Okay.
And then worked at Granite Ridge Assisted Living, and my goal was to become to be a housing director at assisted living.
Okay.
So, but through that, I had met with the director there, and she's like, "You need to be a nurse."
Okay.
Was that she had said, which it's not. So I went on and got my degree in marketing and management, and then went into marketing in senior buildings.
So marketing is probably not a field that people would think as you go into that is tied into senior housing, but we're going to get back to that. How about you, Sara? You're a junior, senior in high school. What were you going to be when you grew up?
I was going to be a teacher. I went to school for elementary education, coaching minor, and graduated and went, I don't know if I want to do that. And there's so many applicants for one position. And I ended up at the local newspaper for almost 10 years and then saw this opening in marketing and just liked being out and talking with people and thought I'd give it a chance. So I've been there about 2 years.
Okay. So I find this very interesting because Jamie has a marketing degree. I have a marketing degree. And you have an education degree, right? So that tells me not one of us really went into the field like through the health avenue to get into the field of aging. But as I sit here and look at both of you guys and what you're doing, and you're the next generation, and that really excites me, I'm wondering what drew you? Was there something in your past that kind of drew you to working with the elderly? Is there any draw from that aspect, or what was the draw?
So mine would be I had a really close relationship with my grandpa, and I loved to go. He'd take me to Dairy Queen. We would go out, and I just enjoyed getting to know the history that he went through with the Great Depression, and he was a veteran. So love that. And then when I went into dietary, I got to meet even more seniors with more history, and that generation just has so much to teach us that if we don't connect with them, we're going to miss out on that opportunity to bring that forward.
Right.
So.
Okay, wonderful connection. And when you were sharing that, I mean, I really believe that the history is what has made the towns are what they are today, and they continue to volunteer. But I also think it's fun to connect with that history, but then for me, currently where I'm at, it's also exciting for me to see the next generation come up and taking hold of that and saying, let's continue to move this forward. So an exciting piece to see that all tie together. And then the other funny thought that flew through my head is when you were talking the Dairy Queen, I said, isn't that the truth? The seniors so often say, the way to the heart is through food, right?
It is. And ice cream with my grandparents was always the treat.
Yep, and it's a good way to connect. Everybody has that connector point, so that's always fun. How about you, Sarah? Was there something like in your family history background that said, oh, when you look back now, like, oh, I had a really good time?
A little bit with my grandparents. When I traveled for work, I used to always meet every time I'd have to be in the Tracy Walnut area. I'd stop and meet my grandparents, and we'd go for lunch that Wednesday. So it was usually once a month. So we'd always have that noon meal, just us, and we'd get to sit and chat. And usually it was at one of the little cafes in town. So we'd have the other elder, senior citizens, and they'd talk. And I remember one conversation, my grandpa leans over to his neighbor and goes, hey, I think I'm the oldest man in town now, aren't I? And the guy he's talked to goes, nope, so-and-so's still around, you're second. So just seeing those conversations and those stories, and I remember sitting with my grandpa and him telling me, like, I never thought I'd see this much in my life, like, going back, I remember getting our first car as a family and going down the road, and he goes, I never thought I'd be to this, where he ended up and how much they were able to do. And
And I think that goes back to the history piece that Jamie was sharing, that we have such a wealth of information, but I also wonder how many people are like, well, how do I ask them? It's like, well, just sit down across the table and start saying, do you remember, or can you tell me something about your first car? And I think it would be...
They love it. Yeah, they'll spill in a second. You'll be there for an hour, easily.
Yes, but what an interesting piece of history, because the other day we had an individual out golfing on his 94th birthday. And it's just interesting, because when you sit, and I thought about that as I was working at my desk that afternoon, it was like, 94 years. I mean, I can't imagine from before radio, before TV, before electricity, all that history that they have, and yet we don't think to ask them. And so, such a valuable piece that we have within our communities to.
I like really when you say that. I think most people think 94, and they don't expect that. They expect sitting in a wheelchair, laying in a bed, and there's so much more that they're capable of and what they still do and can offer. And it's not just they're stuck in a home sitting there doing nothing. They're out and doing stuff and active and present and can offer so much.
Right. And we have the resources right here in town.
Yeah.
So, anybody out there looking, start tapping them. Okay, so we found out a little bit about the history. So you both went to college, got your degrees. And then where did your journeys take you from there? How about you, Jamie?
Well, I got my degree from SMSU, and then I was the typical 20-year-old girl going to spread my wings and move to the Metro into marketing. And I really got interested in the operations part of the assisted living. So I worked for Comforts of Home, that was 6 buildings in the North Metro.
Okay.
And then I did a few other things while I was there, but then my grandpa passed away, and I moved home to move in with my grandma and just hang out with her and help her out. We traveled to Las Vegas and had a lot of great times. And then I met my husband and started working at Boulder Estates and Activities.
Okay.
So moved into the activities department, and then decided to get my master's in healthcare administration and gerontology.
Okay.
And then opened Boulder Creek Assisted Living, the memory care in Marshall.
Right.
And then moved on to this career in program development, and now I've developed services for seniors.
So you've kind of hit several spectrums of serving seniors from the different angles, which is, I think, will give you a lot of value in doing what you're currently doing, because you see it from both ends versus just one end. So that's wonderful. How about you, Sarah?
Mine was a little different. So I came to SMSU here when I graduated with elementary education. Every opening, it was like 200 applicants for a job. So my dad was like, well, I know so-and-so, and they are at the paper and advertising, and they like it. So I'm like, all right. So I tried it, and I ended up staying there for 10 years. I enjoyed getting to know the people in the community
Sure.
and the different business people, and just being out and about and all those connections, and was just looking for somewhere to advance and grow. I didn't know what my next step would be there, and this position as marketing at Heritage Pointe came open, and so I'm like, well, we'll give it a try. And so it's been about 2.5 years now that I've been there, and still enjoy it. You know, I'm getting to work with people and still out and about, and so it was a good fit.
Good, wonderful. Let's talk about a little bit about, as we have hopefully some students catching us, or some parents or grandparents saying, hey, you should really catch this. Let's talk about what are the joys of working with those 55 and best. Who'd like to go first on that one?
I think you get to see them in all aspects of life. You see highs, you see lows, you see the family interaction, you see the people when they come to visit, them sharing their stories and just getting to be involved, and just kind of, they're like your family, you know. It's when someone isn't doing well, you know, you have that whole little community around you to kind of support and lift you up. So if they don't have family here right in town, they have everyone else. And, you know, if someone's missing for a day, it's like, well, where's so-and-so? They're not here. You know, what's going on? And, you know, everyone just works so close. And I think that kind of, I really enjoy, like seeing, and staff and, you know, tenants, it's just such a close family.
Family, a family network. How about you, Jamie?
Oh, there are so many aspects. From the activity side, when I was in assisted living and independent living, it was really to get to know people and their different backgrounds, maybe ones that have immigrated here and learn their story. Everyone has a different story, and you do get that opportunity to build the relationship and to almost become a part of their family, because they may not have family, and creating that joy and seeing them progress through life. And it's not about just sitting there and being bored and getting depressed, and it's about getting out there, being active, going out in the community, enjoying your time. And then from the memory care side, that is a whole different aspect. That is, to me, my passion is working with people with dementia and helping families go through the journey, because it is a difficult process. And so just creating moments of joy and seeing them light up when you walk into a room, and wanting to come out for activity and to just keep going instead of sitting at home getting depressed or sitting in your room. So
being isolated.
Being isolated. So, and then the families really appreciate all you do, so you get kind of both all the whole aspect of it.
So it sounds like family, just, it's like you build this huge family. You don't have just, you have your immediate family, but that family just expands so greatly that if anybody hasn't been in the field, it's one of the greatest, perhaps the greatest joy within that. I know for me, it's also fun listening to their stories. I mean, I believe that I know some history of some families that the families don't know, which I think all of you guys can probably share.
Yes, that is very true.
And some of that history is tied back to the history of Marshall and some of the things that happened in this town and who did them and when they did them. So I just find that stuff just a complete joy. You get to see, I think, for me at least, when you see that in person, you see him as an individual. And then when you hear the little pieces and you see the different interactions, you see the person as a whole, as to where I think so often when people are in other professions, they see him for a moment in time. So we get to see that whole piece, which is just, I think that's what probably brings us the greatest joy, is seeing that whole connection. So that's always kind of fun. Here's one of my favorite questions to ask when I have people on about aging, and this one we'll see where it takes us. And it's one I'm going to ask my board members, so I'll let you know next month what their responses are. At what age are you old, and why?
My perspective has changed. I would say when I was younger, it was 30.
Getting a little close.
Well, I am there, so only because I know I probably shouldn't go there, tell some family history, but now I don't think there is an old, because even when it's amazing when I was in the cities, the average age in assisted living was 75. Mm-hmm. And when I came to back to Marshall, because I'm from this area, and Boulder we had 30 90-year-olds. There wasn't even one 90-year-old in our buildings in the cities. So
Right.
There is no, and you see 90-year-olds riding their bikes. You see 90-year-olds
Golfing.
They're volunteering.
Right.
There's no end. So it's really, there is no time when you're old. It's what you make it,
Right.
is what I have found.
Okay.
I kind of, yeah, it definitely, I agree. As you're younger, you look and you're like, my parents are, and it's like grandparents are really old. Like, we just had a conversation the other morning with my 6-year-old. She has been staying with great-grandma and grandpa in the morning until swimming lessons. And she was talking, and my husband plays baseball, and it's a family thing. So he's like, does everybody in Daddy's family play baseball? I said, pretty much. Yep, that's just how it is. And she's like, well, when Grandpa played, and then great-grandpa, that had to have been like when there was carriages. I'm like, where are we going with this, So looking at it, from her perspective, yeah, great-grandpa, it's like, whoa, that, is old, but yet you see what they are doing now, and it's like, I want to be, like when I get to that age, am I going to feel old, or am I going to feel, still young at heart? And I think that's kind of
Right.
where it is how you feel in your heart and what you make of it. And
Right. I always think that's a really interesting question. I know Heather and I talk about it quite often in the office. And I think we've determined it has to be between 100 and 105. And the reason we got there was because we felt that that was at a point where you perhaps have lost most, or if not all, of your friends. Mm-hmm. And so then you have to make new friends, and that's probably the point where you're probably going to start hitting some physical limitations if you haven't already. So we figured that was a safe age. So if you got to figure you're not old until you're 100, 105, you've got a long ways to go to enjoy life in between. So interesting. Let's go back to talking about our jobs. Now, we talked about the joys of our jobs. What are probably some of the biggest frustrations when you're working with those 55 and best? And I know we always get a little cautious. It's like, oh, how are we going to talk about this? But I know, like for me, I think my biggest thing is I believe ageism is very, very strong. And I think Sara hit it, like, just because you're 94 doesn't mean you're in a wheelchair or need a cane or a walker. I mean, our membership base is 657, and we only have 37 that use a cane, walker, or wheelchair, total. Mm-hmm. So that's 620 that are still moving about on their own. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the hardest thing for me within this community, is to get them to understand that just because they're at the center doesn't mean that they're using one of those devices to get there. They're still very, very active.
I think one of the things I see with us is the hardest barrier is saying, just because you're going to an assisted living or having home cares come in doesn't mean you can't continue to be active and, live a great life. You can still get some assistance to make your life and, what you want to do better, and letting families realize that even if they do come, it's not a prison that they're coming to. They're still getting to do activities, and that interaction, a lot of them think, oh, I'm going to move her and they're not going to like it. And they get there and they're like, I can't believe my mom's out for this and this and this. She's never in her apartment. And, I think they think it's her home. They can't take her from her home, but they're missing so much of that socialization sometimes because they don't have that ability to get out of their home. And so coming to different events and activities just helps, bring them out of their shell and just bring life kind of back into them by having those options.
It kind of brings the youth in them back
Yes.
out, doesn't it?
Yep. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you go up to the lunchroom and it's like you feel like I'm back in high school some days, you know, well, I got to sit with my friends and I got to sit with mine. And
Yeah.
some of those things, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you wish families could see that and how much, you know, it does
Right.
benefit them.
Right. And I think it's no different if you go through the journey of life. At every journey, we need someone to help us get through that journey. And I think it's the same way when they're at an assisted living.
yeah.
It's another journey in life. They just need help with a few little things so they can continue to be and do
Yep.
and just really just blossom with where they're at. So, Jamie, how about you?
So mine would probably be connecting to community resources and time, because what I've been finding teaching the classes I've been teaching is so many people are afraid to tell their families what's going on with them, and they're starting to isolate themselves if they're still living in their home because that fear of, well, now we're going to move you here, and then you're going to lose all control of yourself and your independence. And we need to get, so through education, I'm hoping, and helping families understand that there are community resources available to help people in their homes, but also assisted livings and independent livings and memory cares are great to have, but it's not for everyone, but and that we can help them connect to still being active and still going out if you know what's available in your community.
Right, right. And I think that's one thing that really came up at that One Voice meeting. I mean, as we sit around the table and we have 12 to 15 agencies right here in Marshall that provide services. And I think the key is that people just pick up that phone. And I don't think it matters where they call, because I think anyone that sits around that table will say, oh, nope, I can't provide that, but I know who can. And I think that's really key, because then we can give them a direct name and a direct number or a direct email. And we take that frustration piece away from them. So I think that's one of the wonderful things. How about your jobs? What's one of the things that you leave work on Friday? Do you look forward to coming back to work on Monday?
Most days. I think with anything, you know, they're going to have good days and bad days. And, you know, it's just finding those joyous things and making sure you're doing some of those every day. And
Right. Right.
I would say I do enjoy going to work because I'm helping develop resources that for each community. I do it. I have 7 counties, well, with additional 4 counties at this time. So just being able to connect providers with the resources that we have available or that are available statewide, and I think it's great to keep building up our communities, to create communities for a lifetime, and to have those resources available. We're through the legislative session and things are coming around. So I guess
always a
if you
good
would ask
thing,
me
right?
a month ago when we didn't know, then it would probably been different.
Yeah, I always think that's really critical. I think the other thing that's really a valid point here in the conversation is that I think people often lose that by 2025, there's going to be more people age 65 and older than in our school systems. And I often wonder, as we look out not only at the Marshall community, but any community in the state of Minnesota, have they truly prepared for that? Or are they just saying, oh, we're just going to go on as we are, it's all good, it's working? But I think it takes some preparation, because 2025 is only 8 years away. It's not far. And that's when we just exceed. But the key is that we are having a constant influx of those getting older on a constant basis. So we have this, we talked about it, the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of history, we have volunteerism. I mean, how are we going to take those traits that we work with every day and have the next generation learn them and pick up on them and go forward with that? So I think that'll be really interesting. Let's talk about, say there's an individual perhaps in college and saying, I'm not sure I'm in the right place and the right degree. Or maybe there's a kid that's sitting in high school and says, maybe this is really the way I want to go. Is there any possibilities that they could contact either one of you, come over, have a conversation and say, what is it that you would recommend, the route that you would recommend that I would go on? What do you guys think?
I would,
Yeah.
I would love to. I have already been talking to some seniors, and some college graduates have approached me within my job, so, and on a direction, because they're interested, whether it be assisted living, whether it be nursing, and how you work through that to get where you want to be.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see it too, just some of them coming in saying, I'm thinking of going to nursing, you know, starting as that health aide, CNA, you know, those types of positions to kind of
Right.
get their foot in the door, if it's, or dietary, you know,
Right.
something just to kind of get a taste for it. And
Right.
I know we've had different programs from the community come in and, you know, high school kids to shadow and kind of walk through and get tours just to get a feel for, you know, what is assisted living? Because a lot of people, you know, don't really understand it. And
Right, right. And I think the facilities in town are also very different too. So I would encourage anybody out there that if they're looking at going into the aging field, to really check out the multitude of services we have in the Marshall community. One avenue is to go into the medical field, and that's just one, but I think there's so many other avenues to go into. And I know all three of us ended up in our jobs not planning to go that route. And so it's very interesting. So if you have any questions, you know, take the time, give one of us a call or stop in at one of our facilities and see us, and we'd be happy to have that conversation. So with that, let's just end on what's one of your best memories and one of the positions you've held?
Oh.
And you know, this is a really hard question for those of us who work with those 55 and best, because there isn't a best memory. So maybe I should rephrase that. What's one of the most current joyous memories you have with working with those 55 and best? And that's probably a fairer question to ask at this point in time.
Well, I have a lot, but the one that, because I still want to learn how to play cribbage,
Oh,
is
yes.
when I was in this metro and a guy was very tricky. So he was trying to teach me how to play cribbage for him to win. So we'd sit down and play, and we played like probably 5 or 6 times, and no matter what, I could never score a point, but he was always helping me with my cards and showing me how, and I still to this day don't understand, because finally the cook came over and he goes, he's taking all your points. That's not how you play. So you need to watch how he's doing it to get points, to not do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was just neat to see that he wanted to play, but he loved to
win. Yep, he still had that competitive piece in him.
Yes, but he was fun to visit with and learn more about him.
But in the process, you really got to know him, didn't you?
Yes, but I still don't know how to play cribbage, and I really want to learn. So
I think we could solve that. How about you, Sarah?
I think it's just taking that time to sit with tenants and hear some of their stories and conversations of what's going on, you know, right now in their life and back, you know, for them to reminisce about their days growing up and raising their kids and just kind of hearing their story.
Yeah, and I think they're also very, very different. It just makes it a joy. Well, I want to take this time. I want to thank both of you for being on. I think it's been a fun journey. I think it's interesting to know that if you want to go out and work with those 55 and best, we all agree it's the most joyous career you could ever choose. We have fun every day. There's just highlights every day. So if you can imagine a job where you have a highlight every day, this is the way you want to go. And if you're thinking of it and not thinking of going the nursing route or the medical route, come visit with one of us. And if you're thinking, oh, is this it? No. Like I said, we have 13 agencies around the table, so we'd be happy to share those with you. So again, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Sarah. It's been fun talking.
Thank you, Barb,
Thank you
so much.